Good morning and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Dave Deacon, and combines are rolling across Oklahoma, which means it's time for us to take a look at our yearly look at the Oklahoma wheat crop. This year, we're starting north of Burlington and we're heading south. Howdy, Bo.
Hi.
How are you?
Bo Farrell.
Dave Deacon, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So tell me about the wheat crop here in Alfalfa County.
I think overall we look pretty decent this year, a little above average. Some of it looks pretty good, and some of it really doesn't look that good. The early planted and hard grazed doesn't look as good, and the later planted, the rains have really helped us in cool weather.
Now, is this grazed or is this just grain?
This was grazed, not real hard, just some cows and home-raised small baby calves.
Yeah.
So, but it was pastured.
Now, walk me through your decision to go ahead and do grain versus just going ahead and grazing it out this year.
Well, the price isn't that great,
Yeah.
but really just the weather, and I had pretty good stand on it, so I thought it had potential of making a pretty good yielding crop.
Have you come into any issues with the crop overall this year?
We had rust, and there's been some BYD barley yellow dwarf in the area, and we were hoping to put on a fungicide with the sprayer. We like doing it ground application, but it was so wet and throughout the spring that we had to use an airplane.
Yeah. Well, and that's something you haven't been able to say in the past couple of years is it's been too wet.
Yeah, we did have a pretty decent spring last year. Starting about we've had good April and May the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Pretty good rain, but we were dry throughout the winter for quite a while till we had the ice storm.
So what variety do you have in here this year?
This is Gallagher here this year.
How's it been performing?
Pretty good. The neighbors liked it the last few years, so I decided I'd try it here this year.
What was this wheat here last year also?
It was corn this last summer, and I did Milo before that. So have a decent rotation.
And I tell you what, the wheat looks beautiful this year. Not a lot of weeds. It looks great.
Well, we've had a pretty good spring. Mother Nature's been pretty good.
Now, when do you think combines will start rolling on your land?
Probably first week of June.
Yeah.
Is my guess.
Yeah.
If it turns off hot and dry, could be sooner. If it stays cool and cloudy like this, why, maybe towards the end of the first week of June.
Now in your rotation, do you go back to wheat next year?
I probably will here. Yep.
Okay.
Maybe a chance of soybeans double cropping, but more than likely I'll go back to winter wheat.
Well, Bo, thanks for showing us your Alfalfa County wheat.
You bet. Nice to meet you, Dave.
Nice to meet you.
What a week of beautiful weather in Oklahoma. Hopefully you and your family were able to spend some fun-filled outdoor hours relishing this week's super weather. Checking on recent rainfall, the Northeast Climate Division set a new 60-day rainfall record. The 20-plus inches of rain from March 25th through May 23rd was the most rain they have received for that period going back to 1921. While the Panhandle received less than half that amount, 9 89/100 inches of rain, the Panhandle won the highest percent award at 255% of their normal rainfall from March 25th through May 23rd. That gave us a 60-day rainfall map with lots of bright colors. Nowata had the highest rainfall, 23 7/10 inches. Those rainfall amounts mean great range and pasture grass growth, so important as we begin the main summer growing season. All our recent rain has been perfect for fungi. That shows up as lots of peanut leaf spot hours. In the 2 weeks through Wednesday evening, the accumulation of leaf spot hours across the center of Oklahoma ranged from 74 at Salisaw to 11 at Eric. Here's Gary with a look at our non-drought conditions.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Well, I finally delivered on my promise to get a drought-free drought monitor map for Oklahoma. It took about a month after I promised, but hey, I did deliver. So let's take a look at that latest map and see the wonderful lack of color across the state of Oklahoma. So there you have it, no drought in Oklahoma. We do have a little bit of remaining abnormally dry conditions down in the far southeastern Oklahoma. But again, that is drought on its way out, not emerging. So we are drought-free in Oklahoma as we enter June, which is a great, great feeling. If we look at May, though, while we've had those rains hit exactly where we needed to get rid of that drought, things aren't exactly rosy everywhere. We do have deficits across central, up into northwest Oklahoma, down to the southwest, and also down in that southeastern part of the state. Deficits of 1 inch to even more than 2 inches in some areas. So we should have good conditions to get the wheat harvest started. But then we're going to need some more rain to stave off any deficits we have as we go into the long, hot summer months. Now, if we look out farther, this is the 8 to 14 day outlook for the last day of May through June 6. We do see increased odds of above normal precipitation and also increased odds for below normal temperatures. So if you have increased odds for above normal precipitation during that first week of June, that should mean some pretty good rainfalls are possible. Hopefully that will erase some of those deficits we've seen build during May. And I'm sure most of you will appreciate any cooler weather that we can keep going through that first week of June and then beyond that. It would be nice to have a cool start of summer as we go through June. That's it for this week. We'll see you next week on the Mesonet Weather Report.
Well, Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing good, Dave. How are you today?
Not too bad. How's the wheat crop look in Blaine County?
Well, for the most part, we think it looks pretty good this year.
Well, great. Let's go take a look.
Alrighty.
So what variety do you have here?
This is Gallagher
Okay.
that we planted here, and
It's
it's looking pretty fair this
Yeah.
year. We've had some decent weather. We've had a lot of wet weather here lately. We're not quite sure how that's going to pan into harvest, but it'll eventually dry up a little, I reckon.
So did you graze this also, or was it?
This particular field we did not graze. We grazed the majority of our wheat,
Uh-huh.
but we never did graze this one this year. So,
What's been the biggest pressure that you've had this year?
oh, probably, believe it or not, we've had excessive rainfalls. You know,
Really?
that's kind of got into our scheduling a little bit on things. The winter was unusually warm. We had a couple of cold spells, but then we got 92 degrees in February. Things really looked, we thought we'd cut wheat 2 weeks early. For us, typically the 4th or 5th of June is normal. We thought 25th we'd be out here cutting, but it keeps raining and staying cool. So looks like we're kind of on track still for that first week of June.
Do you rotate this field, or is this just straight wheat?
Typically just straight wheat. Occasionally we will come out and go to a summer crop, perhaps milo, you know, maybe either graze it off or hay it and then go to milo and fallow it for the next year. So typically we run cattle on all our wheat. We're all dual purpose, but we generally have 2 or 3 fields that we kind of have our buffer zone in case we need it later. This particular field is one of those we utilize because it's on a highway and we bring cattle to it. You know, we don't have any grass pastures next to it.
Well, I was going to ask about that. You know, with wheat prices being what they are this year, how do you make that decision about, you know, do I go ahead and take it to grain, or do I do cattle throughout the season, or cut hay?
Typically the decision we'll make is whether to make hay or grain. Our cattle, we kind of have that scheduled anyway. We kind of know what we're going to do. We do have some graze out acres that we kind of dedicate to graze out every year. But on our wheat for grain acres, we'll kind of use hay as a means to try to keep it clean as far as the rye and the cheat and the other weeds that we fight. Then we've got a hay bale for the next winter. You know, and wheat hay is kind of one of our primary hay sources on our farm because it's here early. We can get hay. Sometimes that later hay in the summer doesn't arrive when it gets hot and dry, you know, so.
Well, and it looks great so far. I
Yes.
mean, it's turning out pretty well.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and you think next couple weeks you'll be out here?
I think in 10 days to 2 weeks, we'll have some wheat fields that are ready to cut, so.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for giving us a tour of Blaine County wheat, and we
Well, yes,
really
sir.
appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, is here now. And Kim, Oklahoma and U.S. wheat harvest is getting underway. Let's kind of take a look for perspective what's going on around the world.
Well, as you look around the world, production is projected to be 2% less than last year at 27.1 billion bushels. The United States minus 21% at 1,800 million. It was over 2.3 last year. But looking at our competitors, Argentina, 6% higher production this year at 463 million bushels. Australia down 29%. They've had weather problems there at 919 million. Of course, they had a record crop last year, just like Argentina. Canada down 1% at 874 million. Now, Canada, I took out the Durham wheat there because Durham is projected to be significantly lower than last year, but we don't compete with that class. Looking at the European Union, up 4%. Of course, they had a disaster with their crop last year at 5.5 billion bushels. Kazakhstan down 13% at 478 million. Russia down 8%, 2.5 billion. Ukraine down 7%, and that is significant right there because that's hard red winter, mostly producers, some hard red spring wheat. They're our direct competitors. So from a production down 2%, that's a start at what we need. But the decline in production, I think, is down in the important countries like Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine.
Let's talk about stocks now and how they're projected to change in the 2017-18 marketing year that starts June 1.
Well, again, they're moving in the right direction. You look at the world, now that's going to be up 1%. That's basically because of the European Union production, but the U.S. down 21% at 914 million bushels. Our competitors, Argentina up 2%. Of course, they're a big production there. Australia down 21%. Canada down 28%. European Union down 7%. Kazakhstan down 23%. Russia down 9%. Ukraine down 4%. That's what we want to see because we get these stocks lower, then we can get those prices higher.
And then the next question, what does this mean? How does this translate for grain prices?
Well, right now, not very much because we've got a lot of wheat in the bin that we've got to work through the system. Right now, the market's offering anywhere from $3.40 to $3.60 in Oklahoma. If you look at canola, bringing them in $6.65 plus or minus a nickel around the state. Corn that's fixing to go in the ground based on that December contract. Most of Oklahoma is somewhere around $3.25. Panhandle $3.70. Sorghum at $3.05, and soybeans at $8.75.
Okay, Kim, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Hi, Mike.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Well, you want to talk wheat?
Let's do it.
Okay. So, Mike, what do we have planted here?
This is Gallagher wheat.
Uh-huh. Okay. And how's it been faring this year?
Well, this is a field that I did not graze, and so it's doing pretty good. There's some low spots in here where I've got a little bit of drowned out spots, but in general, this is going to be a pretty good wheat field for me, I think.
If you were to guess, what kind of bushels do you think?
I think it'll make close to 40 bushel probably.
Really? Okay. What's the weather been like this year?
Well, it's been a little bit unusual. We've had adequate rainfall, but it has come in bursts. And one of the things that has hurt the wheat this year, I think, is we had no rainfall between the 19th of February till the 28th of March. And so a lot of my wheat has been damaged by that. The heads are smaller. Again, this field wasn't grazed, and it looks better than some of my other fields.
What kind of rotations do you run with wheat?
My main rotation right now is a 3-year rotation with wheat planted 2 years in a row. The second year I graze it out until the middle of March or so, and then terminate it a month later and plant it to soybeans. That next year I planted again to soybeans, and then it's planted back to wheat then. So that's my standard 3-year rotation right now. This rotation is designed to help on both the weeds that I might have in soybeans and also the grassy weeds in wheat. I'm beginning to have more trouble with especially ryegrass and the different cheats in wheat if I try to plant wheat more than 2 or 3 years in a row. It looks better than my previous 2 years, I would say that.
How far out are you, do you think, from cutting this?
There's still some green heads here. I think we're at least 10 days to 2 weeks away from this field being ready, probably closer to 2 weeks.
And then once you have this crop gone, what are you going to bring into it?
This will, this is its first year planted in wheat, so this will be fallow this summer and will be planted back to wheat. This particular field will be.
Well, Mike, I tell you what, it looks great, and here's hoping that it stays dry enough for you to get combines in the field.
Well, that's what we're looking for this time of the year.
Well, thank you very much for meeting with us.
Thank you.
With the moisture that we've had across most of Oklahoma this spring, it certainly looks like forage conditions are going to be that we can put up some hay this summer. Part of the management issue of putting up hay is storing it such that we have the minimum amount of hay loss between now when we're putting that hay up and when we're going to take it back out to the pasture and feed it next winter. University of Tennessee folks did some interesting research on big round bale storage methods and looked for the amount of hay loss that occurred according to those different storage methods. What they did was weigh the bales in June when the hay was harvested and put in big round bales, and then weighed them again the first week of January, about 7 months later during the heart of the winter feeding season, to see how much percentage-wise hay loss they had. If they stored those big round bales on the ground with no cover on it, their hay loss was 37%. In terms of weight loss. Now, if they did something different and put those big round bales up off the ground on something like some old used tires, then that reduced the hay loss down to only 29%. If they put the hay bales on the ground but covered them with something like a plastic tarp so that they were protected on the top but not underneath, again, the hay loss was 29%. If they did both, if they put them on something that elevated them away from the ground and put a cover over top of them, the hay loss dropped clear to 8%. Tremendous difference from the hay loss that you would see in this situation with nothing underneath or no cover on top. And of course, if they put the hay in a well-protected barn, the hay loss was very minimal at only 6%. I realized that in Tennessee, there's probably a higher rainfall on the average during the summer and fall, even winter months, than what we might see, especially in the western two-thirds of Oklahoma. But I think the concept is still going to be about the same in terms of the rankings of the amounts of hay loss depending upon our storage methods. Dr. Ray Hunke here at Oklahoma State University from the Biosystems and Ag Engineering Department has put together a fact sheet that looks at big round storage concepts and where some of the losses can occur. I encourage you to go to the SUNUP website. That's sunup.okstate.edu. We've got a show link there to that particular fact sheet. Gives you a lot of information about big round hay bale storage and ways that you can save more hay to feed those cows this winter. Hey, we look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Dave Deacon.
Brent McIntyre.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you.
So this is Cotton County wheat.
This is Cotton County wheat. About 10 days, 2 weeks ahead of schedule for harvest here. We got started last week on about May 15th and got several days of cutting. Some days we shouldn't have cut due to humidity and cool weather, but then we got stopped by 6 inches of rain and a lot of wind and hail around here. So
wow,
we're on a break right now, and this is what we got.
And there's a lot of broken here too, I guess.
A lot of broken here. We're probably around 60-70% damage here or more. This field probably had 45 bushel potential. It's probably down to 10 to 15 right now.
So will you be able to salvage anything from this field, do you think?
I think we have. We got to get whatever we can off of here. I'm guessing 10 or 15 bushel an acre. The last thing you want is a bunch of volunteer out here, so we need to get what we can off.
How did the crop look before the hailstorm?
This crop was, I guess, probably around mid-40s, I would say. Gallagher is a good variety of wheat. This had milo on it last year, so it was on cleaner ground. I'd say around mid-40s was its potential, and it's amazing how it could be taken away from you in one night.
This being one field that hasn't been harvested yet, you actually have a couple fields that are.
Yeah, we've got about a third of our wheat already out. We were harvesting on some sandier ground down south of Temple, and we were seeing any yields anywhere between low 30s to mid to low 50s, I guess. And it was, all right so far, but we knew there was a chance of rain inside. Some of that was cut on the little green side, but knowing what the last couple years we've gone through with all the rain and the monsoon weathers we've had, we've seen good test weights drop in the high 50s. So we were seeing test weights here 63, some guys I knew of 65, 65 and a half. And anytime you get a lot of rain on it, you'll see a big drop in test weight and obviously a drop in yield when you see damage like this. So even though it was a little green, we got out what we could just to try to keep its good yield potential there.
Other parts of the state, they haven't had the timely rains that you guys have. We've come across some fields that earlier in the season they were wondering if they were going to have a wheat crop, but you guys, your moisture's been a little more consistent.
Well, down here it depends on where you are. South of Temple, closer to the river, and same with our friends on the other side of the river in North Texas. We were hit by several 5 and 6 inch rains in the fall, and it kept it muddy there for a while. North of Temple and around Walters, it wasn't as much, but we did have timelier rains in the fall, and in the winter time we ended up with 2 inches, 3 inches at a time, and it just kept the ground saturated. Really any ground that's been grazed, there was a severe penalty in wheat yield. If you grazed up to late February, even early mid-March, wheat never did come back out of it because we turned off dry in March. But yeah, we had a lot more rain in the fall and winter than really what we needed.
Right. Well, Brent, thank you for showing us your Cotton County field.
My pleasure, Dave.
Okay. Back on May 19th, we celebrated a major anniversary of wheat research at Oklahoma State University.
The Magruder plots are important to research just due to the longevity of the trials. Having something to look back, whether it's 80 years of fertility work or the 125 years of the check plot, you could have never learned what we learned from those plots in any 4, 8, or even 12-year cycle because of Oklahoma's weather. When you have a plot that you can look back and see 85 years of applying manure every 4 years, or 125 years of not applying nutrients, and what happens and finding cyanobacteria within that check plot that's not anywhere else, that's creating nitrogen for the plant.
We have followed the legacy. We've all had the same philosophy in the main points of soil fertility research.
But it all starts here. This is where we continue to improve the productivity of our wheat crops. So we're fulfilling our land grant mission with this Magruder plot and all the other research that we do in agronomy and plant and soil science.
It's really just a history of wheat production in Oklahoma for the past 125 years. And all that data is there. No one else in the country has it, and we should be very, very proud.
Well, there you have it, a look at the Oklahoma wheat crop from Kansas to Texas and everywhere in between. Have a safe Memorial Day weekend, and remember, Oklahoma agriculture starts at sunup.